Hey everyone, welcome back to Full Stack Development with Ember and Rails. I'm Josh Justice, aka Coding It Wrong, and I'm glad to be back. We took a week off last week to watch ByteConf together, but it was too long. I missed working in Ember and I missed jumping into the Octane preview that just got, the preview got finalized. The whole thing is not finalized, but the preview is finalized at EmberConf just the other week. So I've been playing around with it. Been very excited about to see these new features of Ember and putting them into place. And so we're going to kind of work on converting our little app that we've been working on together over to the Octane preview today. So let's talk about what Ember Octane is. If you go to emberjs.com/editions, you can read about Ember editions. You can see here, I will read to you from this webpage that you yourself can also read. An edition represents a cohesive programming model, and releasing a new edition represents a shift in the programming model due to new features and concepts being added to Ember. So there's new stuff, and it's all going to get rolled out at once because it's been gradually coming out a little bit at a time, given Ember's kind of continuous release model. But the edition is when it all gets wrapped up and says there's a new way to approach Ember apps, and we're going to document it, we're going to make it clear for you. And that's what we're going to look into today. So if you scroll down, you can see that Octane is the first Ember edition. There's like just Ember itself before that, but Octane is the first new edition that's released. And you get sent over to the Octane page with some information about it. They do point out, and I'm going to point out as well, that Octane is a preview right now. So it's not finalized. And the Ember core team, and really everybody I've talked to, recommends not using the Octane preview for production applications yet. Luckily, we don't have a production application. We have an application that we're playing with on a live stream, and so I want to use it so we can provide feedback to Ember about bugs or things that are challenging or things we can document better in the guides. So we're going to do that. So don't use the Ember preview for production, but use it for everything other than production and try it out. And then from here, you can click into Try the New App Quick Start, and here's how you can get started. You'll see here how to install the Ember CLI, just like usual. You might not even need to update a new version of the CLI. But then when you're running Ember new to create a new app, you pass -B for the blueprint. And you're going to use the Ember Octane app blueprint. This is a blueprint for starting out the app that's going to enable Octane preview flags. It's going to run you on Canary, that's sort of the latest release of Ember and Ember Data. So that you get all the latest and greatest stuff, and configure it, configure the folders and everything the way it's needed for Octane. So I'm sure there's probably a way to convert an existing Ember app over to use Octane, but our app is so tiny, it's so small, that felt silly. And so I felt like I'd get a cleaner Octane experience if I created a new project repo from scratch. And so I've done that, and we're going to start moving the content over now. And as we go, I'll get to show you some of the changes that have come about in Octane and some of the things that are new and different and cool. So let's jump into it. We'll switch over to my editor. I've got, the order here might be unintuitive, but it makes sense to me because my head is right here. My head is right in this area. See where that's me. That's right there is me. And I'm blocking out some of the Ember Classic side. So this is the old application we've been working on up until now. But then over here, where there's plenty of space with no heads in the way, we have Ember Octane. And so this is the new app that is empty that I've just kind of installed and done a little bit with. Also, I had a CLI tool that would like scaffold out a new Ember app with all of the Ember add-ons that I like to use. I decided not to use that with Octane because I'm going to add things in one at a time. That'll be safer to see if anything doesn't work with one another or things like that. And it'll also be an opportunity for me to explain, now that you've seen an Ember app really working with everything set up, we'll get to see some of the minor things that we put in place to wire up a new app from scratch. So let's jump into moving our stuff over from Ember Classic to Ember Octane. Now, I have it running, and I think it's a totally blank page right here. I mean, it got Ember stuff going on, but other than that, and does it detect an Ember app? It does. It detects an Ember app. We're on the index screen, but nothing is being rendered up, so that's fine. So we're going to start moving stuff over, and we're going to want to use the console here. Do I have a cursor? I do have a cursor. It's not blinking for me, though. All right, cool. So when we set up the previous app, using that kind of tool I have for scaffolding new apps, it was set up already to connect to a Rails backend to pull the data in. But because that's not set up for us by default, we're going to need to do that, and it's going to be super, super simple. We can run Ember G adapter. So an adapter is an Ember data class that adapts Ember data's data to a certain backend. So the adapter we're going to call application, because it's going to be application-wide, not specific to one model. And by default, this is going to be set up using a JSON API adapter, which is the data format we've been using this whole time. That's what we set up in Rails, and that's what Ember Data's internals are all built around. going to pull up my process thing here because my virus scanner continues to cause problems and slow things down. So we'll just force quit the virus scanner. I'm sure that'll be fine. Good times. By the way, anyone on the stream, thank you so much for joining in live. Feel free to say hello in the chat room. Any questions or feedback you have, for sure. So, okay, we generated the application adapter, and there's a folder and then test for it as well. Here it is. It's just an empty class that extends JSON API adapter. And note that we do have ES6 classes. So we had to add an add-on to our app called Ember Decorators to get ES6 classes in traditional Ember. In Ember Octane, classes are used by default. So we have this adapter, and the thing we need to set is we need to set the host. What is the host, the URL, that we should hit for our backend? And this is an ES6 object class property, instance property, or class or instance field. There's so many names for it. We just want to specify the host on here. And I could hard code it, but I do remember that in my other app, I've set it up as an environmental config variable, and that's going to come over just the same. So if I look at my classic app at the environment file, and I look under if environment equals development, I have env API host equals localhost 3000. So I'm just going to copy that over into the environment file in Octane. This all looks pretty much the same. We'll just add that in there. We're going to ignore Mirage for now. I'm sure we'll get back to that once we get into testing later. But this will set up this env file, the env variable, to point API host to here. Then what we can do, and I'm going to come over to this adapter to copy some stuff over. We're going to import the env object from this path. And then once that's there, we can just refer to env.api host. So you can see that we're using a different kind of classic Ember syntax over here with a lot of details we don't need to get into yet. All we need to do is to set this host property over here in Octane, and then we'll be set to go. So that is now all set. Let me just get my list here just to make sure I don't forget anything. I do have a minor thing that I'm going to forget if we don't do it right away. I have already added, that's one other thing I did before the stream. I have added Ember Paper, the UI library that we're using. So far that works perfectly for me in Octane, so that's been a great experience, and we'll kind of keep going with that. So we got, but there's one config tweak we made when we were styling the app, is that we set the colors, the theme. So I'm just going to go into this app's SCSS file and copy over this variable primary color yellow that we had set in our app before, and now we will get a yellow app as well. All right, so next we want to set up our model. So I'm just going to generate the model files to make sure we get like the wrapping and the classes they're extending and things like that. And then we'll look at individual lines of the configuration we want to copy over. And again, there are tools, I'm sure, to update an existing app in place, but because our app is so small and because I want to look at and really call attention to these changes, I'm doing it manually here. All right. So let's generate these. So we can do Ember G model. We'll do that idea model first because that's kind of the core model of our application. And then after this, once we get into this, I'm going to generate a few of the other ones as well. Let's copy Ember G model. One thing that's interesting to note is that these folders are not here by default in this Ember Octane blueprint right now. But as you generate a model, the model folder is added as needed. So I'm going to generate, let's see here, what are the models? Author, generate quote, and generate source. So that'll get our other three models generating while we're looking at this one. So in our idea model, we see that we have class idea model extends model. And we were doing that before. That all looks pretty much the same, but there is one difference. One additional thing we're going to add in a different way. So in order to use ES6 classes for models with classic Ember, we needed to add this add-on called Ember Decorators. So this is a semi-official but third-party additional add-on. So in order to get access to these decorators that would allow us to use ES6 classes but still tell Ember what we needed to do. So basic decorators are actually built into Ember Octane, and so this is essential for you to be able to use ES6 classes as the default in Octane. And so just from this Ember Data DS object, we can get the attribute and has many decorators themselves, and we don't need to pull in this Ember Decorators package. This is one of the nicest things about Octane, is that now that ES6 classes are going to be the default, all the documentation and as add-ons are moving over towards it, you'll see ES6 classes everywhere. It'll just be the default way everybody thinks about Ember. So that's really cool. We have an attribute here, the summary attribute. With Octane attribute decorators, you actually have to use the parentheses. Those are required. So that's a little bit of a difference. And then also has many You could use it without any arguments passed, but as I was talking to Ember Data folks on Slack, nope, not Slack, on Discord, they encouraged me that it's good to explicitly name the other model that you're pointing to. So I think that was the case, and that was possible in Ember Classic as well. But we're going to go ahead and do this in Octane as a part of doing the update to do things as explicitly, or I'm not always a fan of being explicit, but because the Ember Data team is recommending to specify the model that you're pointing to, I'm going to go with what they recommend to keep things as standard as possible. So instead of adder and has many with nothing passed to them, we explicitly call adder. We pass the, call it as a function. It's a thing that one does with decorators, apparently. And we do the same with has many, and we pass the name of the other model. So let's just go through. For these other models, I'm just going to paste in these imports, or rather the destructuring there to get access to those decorators. And then let's go look at the fields that we have to copy them over. So in author model, we have adder name, and then has many sources. And then in quote, looks like this time we actually need belongs to instead of has many. Adder text belongs to source, and then belongs to idea. All right, that's all set, and now let's look at the source model itself. This one we need a belongs to and a has many. It's like I planned this out, but really I did not. I just built the app I wanted to build, and this is the data model we've ended up with. But it's convenient. So we add the belongs to and then has many. Note that the name is singular in the parentheses because that's the name of the model class that we're using, but then the name of the field is plural when it's a relationship and when that's the way you've set it up on your back end. All right, so we've got our models there. Let's see if I'm forgetting anything else there. Best to have model name. Cool. Okay, so we're good. So next, let's get our components generated. So Ember G component. Let's see what components we have. After we get things set up and running in Octane, I have some other changes I was thinking through for components to make things a little more reusable, easier to navigate around our application. So hopefully we'll have time to work on that today. So we're going to generate the app header component. I think I could use the kebab case, the hyphenated file name, or the uppercase component name. Don't need that component suffix in there though. So we're going to generate the app header component. We'll get that started, and then we'll just kick off another generation of the other pieces as well while we start to work on it. Cool, that's good. Ember G component. So what other components do we have? We have back button and generate idea card and generate. We'll skip the new idea form because we had that early on, but then I hadn't added it back in. So we'll skip that, and we'll add in a new form once we're actually using it. But we'll add a source card, and then that's all our components. All right, so components have the JavaScript file and the template. So let's look at the JavaScript files first. Our app header is here, and it looks very similar to the version of the component we were using with decorators. But you see here that we pulled in the action decorator and the inject or service decorator from Ember Decorators. So that's different now in Octane because it's built into Ember itself. So let me get from my cheater sheet here where the imports are. So action now comes from Ember Object, and inject, which we rename as service, as is conventional, comes from Ember Service. So these are all built in now. Feels more official and more like it's not going to change. Although the JavaScript spec body is always changing what decorators do. Hopefully we'll land that someday. But the way these work is actually just the same. So we can copy over the contents of our file, and we're good to go. So that's our app header. I'm going to paste these imports into all of our components because I think they're all going to need it. All right, so let's see what's in the back button. Back button, we have a service for the router. Go to root. So we're good to move that over. Let's see idea card. Oh, I see. There's my typo got copied over. Let's remove that typo. Prettier formatted my typo to be nice and pretty typo, which is great. Okay. There is something here that changes, but I want to see if it's going to give us an error message so we can see if you're updating your app what you might run into. So I'm going to leave that for right now. We'll come back to the change that is required there. Go to the source card. We'll copy things over. remind me. If you're live on the stream and I forget that I left a bug in the code, please remind me and let me know so I don't flounder. Okay, so that's our components JavaScript source. Minus a bug or two we'll fix soon. So let's go through and let's open up the templates. So the app header template is here. And this is pretty much the same. So although angle bracket syntax was added in Ember 3.4, so it's been out for a number of months now, but not all the documentation has been updated to use it. And the Ember guides in particular were holding off on switching to it until the Octane edition. And so although angle brackets were already supported, they are also part of Octane, and so that comes over just the same. Also, using the @ sign for these arguments is a part of Octane, but we were using it already, and that was already supported in Ember traditionally. I think this action thing can go away, but we'll come back to that in a minute. So let's copy over the other templates. I think most of our templates are going to come over just the same. Idea card is all here. I do think I remembered another thing we're going to get a warning about, so I will also let you see that warning for helpfulness purposes. Okay, so our component templates are all copied over now. Now let's generate the routes. Ember G route. So the routes we have here are sources detail. And we'll just start one off, and then once it's done, we'll get going on the others. I think the routes come over exactly the same, so that's going to be really nice. Route sources index, and route ideas, and route index. So those will all get generated for us, and in the meantime, we'll define the routes. Sources detail route. So as before, we have this model hook, this model attribute, and we take in an ID and we search, do find record on the store. So that's all just the same, so that's great. All of our routes have model hooks that are loading our data, so we'll put that in. Our ideas route has some data that's coming in. That's the same too. Some nice eager loading of data. Love it. So excited to get that working nice and reliably. All right, so we're loading all the data there. So now let's look at the templates for these routes. Sources detail, back button, paper card. That's all good. I see another bug that's going to warn us about, so we'll come back to that. Sources index, application with our app header and our responsive layout. And ideas has also a list, and index has a list of idea cards. Okay, so that's our routes. Generate and update. Oh, and then the other thing, we need to update our router.js. So this we did this when we created it as well. When you generate a route, it just has the same name that you generate it with, but sometimes we want to customize the path, especially when we're viewing like an individual record. And so we need to pass in this path options object that specifies that an ID variable should be there in the route that we're under. Okay, so that's all there. So let's see what I remembered. I think it should boot up, and then we'll see some errors and things not working related to a few different things we need to fix. So this will be a good experience. Okay, I can see on the stream that this is showing up, so let's reload it. Let's go into the console. It's very red, so that's interesting. Let's see what happened here. We got 404. Ember data requests ideas return to 404. I think I might need to restart. Localhost 3000 ID. Wait. Localhost 4200 ideas. Yeah, so Ember has not caught the fact that we changed that environment variable config 2.2 Rails. So we're just going to restart it and start it over again to catch that. So most things are caught. I think even things in config environment are caught and updated. I forget if so. But it seems like this environment variable change is not caught, and so that's no problem. It's changing rarely. So we'll just restart our app and pull it up. Streaming and cranking away JavaScript always stresses my app. We see some errors in here. I think, and this is good, I think we're actually going to see the same in the browser. Let's see if we do, and if we don't, we'll look into it otherwise. Okay. So check it out here. We got some warnings around Ember $, stuff like that. I don't think that's pertinent. Component.get is not a function. So I think this is probably something fairly internal that's not going to necessarily help us. So let's pay attention instead to these errors in here, because I think these will help us. So for sources index, it says ambiguous path model is not allowed. Use @model if it's a named argument, or this.model if it's a property on this. So this is something where this was not the JavaScript this. Previously in Ember templates, you could just say model or refer to other things, and it would just try to pull it from a number of different places. An argument to the component or a property on the component. Well, really, arguments to the component were set as properties on the component. But now it needs to be done more explicitly. And so just like, I think in our components, did we ever refer to the @sign thing? Yeah, just like in our components, we used @idea to show that this was an idea argument passed into this component. If something like a model is set and exists on the route that we're on or the component we're on, we need to say this.model to make it explicit that it's coming from that property. So I'm going to update all of these. Each model as is definitely it's like the Ember idiom that I'm used to. So it's going to take some getting used to for me to start putting in this.model. But let's just put it in and we'll see how things are looking. Cool, so we have a screen here. The reason software design is necessary is because change is inevitable, and it loads up. We're still getting this component.get is not a function, so that's interesting. I don't imagine it's going to show us where it's for. Controller for component. Now that was not useful. Let's see here. This.idea is undefined. So that's something I'm more familiar with, so let's come back to that. This shows me this.idea is undefined in idea card. And so this was easy before. This.idea is in the idea card component. The idea is passed into the idea component, and then we access it here. That's the idea to transition to go to the web page for. So this is different as well. So arguments that you access in the template, you pass them in with the @sign, and you access them in the template with the @sign. But that's not JavaScript syntax, so we can't use that in the JavaScript file itself. So instead, arguments are now put on this.args. And that makes it explicit that those are arguments, and you can avoid accidental collisions of arguments overriding methods or properties on the component or anything like that. So this.arg is what we're going to want to use, and let me just find other places. Yeah, this.args.source.id. So let's reload. Component.get is not a function, so we'll get to that in a second. But we are able to navigate now, so this is good. We can navigate around. So let me look at my notes to see what was the thing to change around this.get. No implicit this during the action helper. Oh boy, is this going to be a bug that I'm not familiar with how to fix? I know I didn't have this problem before, but I may not remember exactly how to fix it. Let's take a look through our files and see what we could find. If I can figure out how to troubleshoot it as well. Remember, is anybody live on the stream who remembers when I said, please let me know if I forget how to fix something? You can let me know now. It would be so great. All right, args idea ID, this.router is all there. Component get. That feels like component.get is not a function. Let me look at that line of code. I was just talking to somebody on Twitter about what do you do when you're debugging and get stuck on the stream, and here we are. Get target controller for component. Yeah, that's like an Ember internal thing. We're definitely not directly working with anything like that. So let's see. I have the working code so I can compare with it as a cheater. Let's see here. Routes. Does routes look right? Components. Action this.go to root. Maybe that? I think that was fine though. This.model quotes. Interesting. Let me check through on my cheater monitor and see if I can briefly see what's going on. Because it would be nice to not have this error, because that's not pleasant. Got branches. No, we got ideas, Octane. This is why new things like this, different things like this, are great to try out in advance. Branch solution. Yeah, here we go. We can see it all at once and see what I missed. This router transition to index. Yeah, that's all fine. Yeah. Okay. Decorators. Sources. Templates. Yeah, that looks all the same. So maybe I just didn't notice something or something. It's working now. Like it's not ideal, right? So you'd want to have that fixed. But it's working. It's not blowing up. Oh, and actually, no, it's not. It's not blowing up. Maybe the page did not sufficiently reload. Well, I'm glad that happened. So things are looking good. I can navigate around and we're good. All right, great. So we have now copied our app over. Oh, let's try one other thing though. I believe I'm doing an unnecessary call to action here. So paper button on click action this go to root. I don't think that's needed. I think this .go to root is a method. It's a method I've annotated with action. There with the action decorator. So I think we're good. I think we can just do this go to root and we can just keep that there. Let's try this go to root. Idea card. I want to keep things as simple as possible, and I think this is what the Octane preview guides were showing. I'm not sure. There's been different ways over the years to work with actions. Those probably are not going to have actions, so okay. So we're on here. We can go to details. We can go back. We can go to sources. We can go there and we can go back. Okay, cool. We're able to navigate around. Cool. So let's add this. I'm going to remove these generated tests again because I'm not actually using those. We will get to testing one of these days. Once we're feature complete, we'll get to testing, which is something I never thought I'd say because I'm so into test-driven development. But we're still in the experimentation phase. Ideas. So add ideas content. We've moved it over. So now let's talk about the next thing I want to do. So we're up and running with Octane. We're going to work with it. We're going to move forward. So as I was playing with this past week, I was starting to feel not great about our UI and the way we navigate around. I mean, it was definitely like a work in progress, but I can't like having to type in sources to get over there. I mean, I typed it wrong. I mean, that was unintentional, but geez. So yeah, type sources, have to go back. So I want navigation up at the top. But up until now, like the navigation has been kind of tedious because we have these buttons that we have to custom define. And this is because Ember has a built-in link helper that lets us link to a different route. But that's not what we want to use actual buttons here from Ember Paper, and they don't have that facility. You just have to pass in an action that they execute. What I realized was really I just want I defined this back button that has transition to index, but really I think that's more generalizable. Really I want a navigation button. And I want to be able to use that to get around different parts of the app. So that feels reusable. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to check the cheater monitor here again to see how I did it. Nope. Yeah, there we go. UI tweaks. Let's see here. App components. Yeah. So we're going to add a nav button that's going to be general and reusable. So G component nav button. And this is going to allow us to move around our app much more freely. It's going to feel a lot better and a lot better, better setup for us to be able to do experimentation in the future. So let's get this nav button. We're all set. Delete the tests as you do. Cool. So we got our nav button. So let's compare this. Actually, let me just extend this over here. We're done with classic. We are moving on. And so we can pull up back button and compare it. And nav button's going to go over here. Just copy our things over. Probably good to set up an editor shortcut for that. We still need the editor, the router service. We still want not go to root. Probably we're going to call that something differently. Probably we're going to call that navigate. And when we navigate, what are we going to transition to? Well, we can say, let's think about how we would use this, first of all. And I've thought about it before, but let's walk through it. Maybe, and I'm going to look at my header here that I did elsewhere to see how it works. App header. Yeah, all right, cool. So we have our app header here. We have our app header template here. And we have a paper button here, and on click we say go to root. But instead, well, let's leave that for now. We can put a span in here. And just a paper toolbar tools is laid out with Flexbox. So this is just going to allow us to have space in between to push these other buttons over to the right. And so let's use our nav button. We don't need to import it. And oh yeah, and I had a styling thing here that I applied as well. So this is raised. Well, let's come back to that. 2, so we'll have a 2 argument. Where do we want to navigate to? Index. That's nice and simple. That makes sense. That's something we can specify here. And we can say here, ideas. So ideas page is at the index route. Then we could say, okay, how about the sources page? That's going to be at the sources route. And it's just that easy to specify it. So to get that working, we need to go in here and we want to transition to this.args.to. So if we pass in an argument with @2, that's access on this.args.to. So that'll allow us to get there. So how about the template for the nav button? Let's pull it up. This is just going to be another paper button. On click equals this.navigate. And I'm pretty sure we don't need to say action there or anything. Paper button. And then in here we just yield to the children. That way whatever text or anything else we put in the button is going to be rendered out there. So this should allow us to navigate. So we've got these buttons up here at the top. Let's see if it works. We've got ideas and sources showing up. And if we click, it navigates us back and forth. And if we go into here, we can go back to sources or back to ideas. So that's really cool. That's great. So I forget what I used this raise thing for. So let's see. Now that that button's there, we can replace some of our other usages. So like in the app header, this can be just a nav button. And we can say @2 equals index. And so now in the app header, we don't even need this. We actually don't need anything in the component there. So it's nice and empty. I think we would probably actually delete this component class file, but let's hold off on that for a second and see. I haven't tried that before, so that'll be new. Closing tag paper button did not match last open tag nav button. So that's right, that's got to change. Yep, so we can go to sources and then ideas, also functions to take us back to the root there. Cool. Okay, so where else? I think the back button, we could probably use the nav button and not need a back button component at all. So let's substitute that out and then we'll remove the back button. So that doesn't have a back button. Idea card doesn't have a back button. No, those cards, it's on the routes. So here, do we want a back button component? It already exists. I suppose we could, and maybe that can be a classless component as well. So we'll just say this is a nav button, and we navigate to index. So let's see if that works. Make sure it reloaded. It did. Back goes back. Cool. So now comes the big step. Let's see what happens if we delete these components, the component JavaScript files, and just leave the templates. And it looks like we're good. Oh, uh-oh. Something's not working right. JavaScript broken? Let's see here. These clicks, oh, that click worked. Why did only that click work? Well, we can undo what we changed and find out. Oh, did I delete? I deleted nav button, didn't I? Yep, because back button is there. All right, so let's put nav button back. I guess we need one of those. Nav button component, we transition to this.args.to. And now hopefully we'll be set. Details. Ah! What has happened? Alright, so this is silently failing, so that's unfortunate. Nav button component. Back button, nav button to index. nav button. Click this dot navigate. Oh, I didn't change the action. Actually, a little bit unfortunate that Ember doesn't tell me the error that there's no such action. That's too bad. Okay, so these let me navigate. I can go in, I can go back, and from going in, I can go over to there. Sources 1, sources back. So this is great. Cool. So we can leave back button just as a simple, like a template only component. I think that's new in Octane as well. I'm pretty sure. Not pretty sure. I'm somewhat sure that that's the case. Cool. So let's see if there's other cases where we can replace something with the nav button. Back button. Source card, application, paper item, idea card, and then paper item? Idea card. Paper button, on click, go to idea detail. So this, oh, so yeah, I haven't actually, let's try this. I haven't done this in advance, so we'll do this here. It would be great to be able to replace this button so that we don't need this go to idea detail here. We could just pass it in. So let's check out what we've built here. Idea card. Idea card component. Go to idea detail, transitions to ideas, and then we have this this attribute that's sent to transition to. So we'll need to update our nav button to be able to take that as well. So let's see what we can do here. Let's say this is a nav button. We'll say at 2 ideas, and then let's just match the arguments that go to transition to. So we'll say at let's say at ID, because that's how we're using it. And then we'll pass, in this case, it's at idea.id. In fact, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's good to go. Cool. Let's try that. So, okay, now, so over here, we got the nav. Let's put this over here. We got our nav button. In transition to, we're going to pass this.args.id. Yeah. And maybe when that's not specified, maybe it'll just be null and it'll just work. Or maybe it will blow up spectacularly. We'll just have to find out. We can work around it if so. So I think hopefully our other nav button usages will still work. But then this one, maybe this will work as well. This is the idea card to go to the idea details. So we've got an idea card, idea details, and it works. And yet this doesn't. Oh, here we go. More context objects were passed than our dynamic segments for the route index. So Ember sees that we passed another argument and it didn't like it. So what we're going to do is, there's maybe other ways to do it, but we'll say if this.args.id, if that's provided, we're going to pass it. Otherwise, call this.args.to. Maybe we can do that simpler in the future, but this is okay. We can go back, we can go there, we can go back, we can go there. Cool. So now we have this ID argument that we're able to pass into a nav button. So let's see where else we can use it. App header is good, back is good. Okay, nav button to ideas. Here we go. Now for the source card, let's do nav button. Okay, let's see how we went into there to source detail. 2 sources.detail ID equals source.id. So let's see if that works. We go to sources, detail back, and we're good. Let's see if there's any other paper buttons we're using directly. I'm not opposed to that, I just want to see. Okay, so let's add this in. Actually, you know what? I think there's more components we can delete. Idea card, we don't need this navigation anymore, so that can get deleted. And source card as well, I think. And hey, why is our app header there? I don't think any of this is needed. See if I regret it again like I did last time. Ideas and sources, we can go back and forth. Ideas 1. Sources. Cool, so we can navigate around anywhere we want. Oh, check this out though. Check this out. So from the sources 1 page, our back button previously was hard-coded to go back to ideas, but we can fix that. Because now on the sources detail page, We don't want back button. We want a nav button. I guess it's nice to have a back button component that just says that less than. That's nice. But we won't. Let's have a to argument that says this goes to sources, and this one goes to, let's say index is the default. So in our back button, to index, no. We want to say to the to attribute we get there, we'll pass along. And we'll see if we can do that. I don't think that works in Ember, so let's find out. Yeah, Ember does not like that. There's like helpers you can use, but I think it's okay to not. So in this case, what we might need to do, so that error's out. So that's not working. I think for now, like we could add a component or we could add those helpers to set a default, but there's only one place that the default's being used. So I think right now I'm just going to set it here back to index. Okay, ideas there, and then sources detail, and then back to there. So cool. So let's see what changes in all we made. I actually did not realize we'd be able to kind of delete some component classes and get some template-only components. But that's really nice, and this is great. Look, we can see all these templates that are used for functionality, and there's only one component that has functionality that we have all these templates we need use for rendering, for DOM, but only one has behavior that we've added to it. So we've added all these components, but we've deleted all those components and added a nav button component instead. And then in our templates, we made a bunch of changes. Let's add this template. Let's just review the changes here. So we've changed to nav button, and we've added a few other nav buttons. We're now using nav2. And note this interesting setup here where we receive a @to argument and we pass it along in the @to argument here. So that's the syntax for the way that works. Nav button there. Nav button there. Here we have a hard-coded sources detail, so we just pass that as a string, but then we use the double curlies for something that's a dynamic variable. Back to index, back to sources. Cool. Add nav button component. So that makes things much nicer. We can get around our app. I don't feel trapped on the different screens that I'm on. It feels a lot better. So let me just check it and see. We're at 40 minutes after. Let me see what other commits I did on this branch, on this UI branch, and we'll see if there's anything else we want to add in before we head out. Separate cards, yes. Okay, this was a visual change that I liked. So what is it? If we look at this idea, refactoring in small steps allows you to make changes gradually. Click in here under details, and here I've placed everything into one big card. Now we're not styling our app from scratch, we're using Ember Paper. And I did this intentionally because I wanted to be able to quickly move and iterate through my application. I think I had a tweet that I wanted to share about that though. Let me see if I can find it super quick. So because of this, I'm just putting things on the screen and then I'm looking to see how it turns out, and I'm trying to decide how to make things better. And I don't like the fact that everything's on one big card there. So let's check one more time. Yeah, here we go. Here's that tweet I was thinking of. So let's move it over here. So I just saw this tweet. An Ember person retweeted it, as you might imagine. But this is Chris Epstein, who's the creator or one of the creators of Sass. Check it out. I will read again what you can read on the screen as well. Homogeneity in web design is a good thing for users. Your website or app isn't a snowflake. This is something from Rails world and Ember world that I've been all about all the time. It mostly does the things that other websites and apps do, and it should be as similar as possible on those dimensions. I don't know if Chris is as exasperated as he's saying this, but I'm saying it. Good UX is utilitarian, not art. And so this really validated my choice and our decision to use Ember Paper here. We don't need to redesign the UX and the UI and all the CSS from scratch. We can use an off-the-shelf tool. And this was encouragement from the creator of Sass that can be a good thing. So that was very, very exciting to see, very encouraging. So The way we do the UX for this is we look at what we have on the screen and see if we can rearrange the components. So this feels like one giant card, and that's not how cards are supposed to feel. Instead, like this title, refactoring small steps allows you to make changes gradually, is like one thing, and then each of these quotes is like another thing. So I'd like to have a separate card for each of those. So let's just go into here and see what we can do. So in the ideas template, we have one card, one paper card here with a title and then a content here with a list with multiple things in it. So instead, I don't want to do that. Instead, I want to stop the first paper card here. And then this each goes at the top level. So I'm looping through the quotes. Actually, I need to go one more level. I'm looping through the quotes. So then in each quote, I'm going to have a card again. Another paper card. Now, what do I have in that card? Looking at the cheater monitor here, because I worked through these things before. We are going to have a card title again. Instead of this, so let's just kind of do this. In fact, let's just move this down outside, because that's all going to go away. So here's our card. In our title, we have the title text, just like we have up before. Title text, and in there, so there's two separate things we can do. We can use headline for the main thing, which is going to be, in this case, is going to be our quote text. And then we can do a subhead. Oh, is this? Oh, no, I went to the wrong place. Yeah, so subhead, I have a separate line. And here I think I'm just going to put the author name and the title next to one another, because I don't particularly care about any certain way of displaying it. I just want to display it some way reasonably that makes it easy to parse. So now we still have the quote text, the source author name, and the source title listed out here. It's just one card for each of the quotes. So let's see how it looks. All right, so we have the refactoring in small steps allows you to make changes gradually up here at the top. And then we have these other cards down below. I'd still like to call this out a bit more to make it look a bit different, to highlight it more, but I haven't looked up how to do that yet, so we'll do that some other time. Splitting it up into these cards is already progress in the right direction. So let's think about sources. If we go to sources, same thing happens, where we have multiple quotes showing up under the source. So let's make the same changes there. I'm actually going to just copy this content over. Nope, not that. Source detail. Close the first card out, that is the title. And then down here underneath, what do we want to show? We have the quote text as the headline, and then the subhead is simply the quote idea summary. We're already on the source page that has the author. We just need the idea summary. Oh, and we need the loop here. I did not copy that over. So we'll put each right there. All right, we'll let Ember refresh itself. And now we have the heading for the source, and then we have these two different bits. Two quotes, and it's showing what idea it's related to. I'm not convinced that I like that. I do know that it's the two quotes that are the primary thing that lives underneath here. But maybe in the future, maybe I'd organize them by idea. Maybe I'd say, hey, within this source, what are the ideas that it has, and what are the quotes that those are grouped under? So I'm not sure which way that organization is going to go. We're going to be able to use Ember Data's relational model to move those things around as we need to. But for now, I think we're close to good. Things are much more navigable. It feels much more usable. Really, we've come to the point now where I feel like I could really use this app if only there was a way to put data into it. So that's what we're going to do next time. We're going to get into, we've got read working great for reading this data, but we're going to get into CUD, create, update, and delete of these different records. We're going to stick with our main use cases here first to be able to see ideas and add ideas, as well as see sources, add quotes to a source, and hook them up to an idea. So those are the main things we want to be able to do as a user. And then secondarily, after that, once we get that working, we see that working, we find that it's useful, we'll add the supplemental stuff, the ability to add new authors, the ability to add new sources. And then at that point, we'll have create, read, update, and delete for all of our model objects, and we'll be good to go. Then we'll just need to kind of plop in authentication. So we'll be set, and then we'll be able to deploy this and do something I've been waiting for weeks and weeks, which is that I can actually start using this when I'm doing stuff, when I'm reading blog posts and watching talks and reading books. So this is where we're at. Let me commit these changes. That'd be good. Split out separate idea and quote cards. And we're good to go. So we are on Ember Octane Preview. This is very exciting. Notice, I mean, the whole ecosystem is working together. It's great. The Ember Inspector is working. Maybe I got to reload the page to get Ember Inspector working. Yeah, so we're good. We can see the application sources detail. What is that? No. We see the routes that we've gone under application sources detail. We see the data that's been loaded. Ember data is working great there. Some deprecations might be something to look into. I think the components may not actually be working right. I'm not totally sure. And unanticipated, we got into the idea of template-only components. I believe this is something. The reason I believe this is new to Ember Octane is that the Glimmer components are the new component API that's much simpler and allows for flexibility, like not having a backing component class file, whereas you needed that for wrapping elements and things like that. Let me point you to a few things in the Ember updates here. If you've used Ember before, is there an upgrading guide? Editions, Ember Octane. Is this the whole thing? Yeah, here we go. So this is this page here, Upgrading Editions, talks about how to upgrade to Ember Octane. And so I read through this and followed this. Let me see if I can find a reference here to template only. Yeah, here we go. So let's see if that's new. Template-only Glimmer components. In Octane, template-only components are Glimmer components instead of classic components. They have outer HTML semantics, so they don't have a wrapping element. There's not a div or something else that Ember adds. What you see in the template is what you get. And this is getting into things that I didn't draw out about the way Ember used to be. But in Octane Preview, you just get the elements you specified here rendered out directly without wrapping. Bindings are one way, and they don't have a backing instance. They can only access argument values. They're effectively stateless. And there's a lot of benefits to that when it comes to the UI. There's efficiency when it comes to how Ember renders them out as well, so you'll see performance benefits too. Cool, so that's where we've gotten to today. Join me next time. Next week, we'll be back on next Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern to go through making our app more writable again, adding in some forms to be able to add data into here. That'll be great, and we're going to actually, I think, then get to see some more features of the Octane Preview when it comes to track properties and the interactivity. So thanks so much for joining. It's been fun to be on this adventure together. I'm super excited about Ember Octane and all the new things that are coming in. I've been following it for probably maybe not Octane, but like the new developments in Ember for over a year. And that's why when we started our series, I pulled in Ember Decorators and angle bracket components and things like that. But with Octane, all these things that are in various states of doneness are getting finalized and set to go so that everybody can use it. So I'd highly encourage you, check out emberjs.com/editions. Get going with Ember Preview for your personal apps and side apps, not for production use. Give it a try and let me know what you think. There's an Octane room on the Ember Discord you can join into to ask questions and leave feedback. Please report any bugs you find and any questions you have. One of Ember, and especially the Ember Learning Team's big focus is making Ember easier to learn. So if there's things that are easier for you or things that are harder for you in Ember Octane, let the team know, because they and we would be happy to know to make Ember as accessible as possible. Hey, thanks for joining in. We'll catch you next time. Catch me on Twitter at Coding It Wrong. Follow me on Twitch. Say hello to me on Ember Discord at Josh Justice, and we'll catch you next time. See ya. Let's go to the slide. That was not the slide. That was the mute. Let's go to the slide. Have a good one.